How's it going, everyone? It's Tommy from Mother Sponge 5000. Today is March 15th, 2021, and today we're going to obviously talk about what's left of this major Midwest snowstorm and see how much snow it could dump, additional snow it could dump in the Midwest as well as the Northeast. And we'll also talk about the next major severe weather threat that will occur in the Southeast and the next potential snowstorm that could impact a lot of the Northeast states. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather-related content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather-related content. So let's begin by taking a look at the current radar, and you see there's an extending band of snow extending from Ohio all the way as far to the north and west, all the way to Minnesota, and even some portions of North Dakota. So it is a long extending band of snow. However, the good news is for a lot of you guys who do not like the snow or who do not want any more snow, this storm is rapidly weakening as a result of being cut off from the jet stream, and there isn't just a lot of cold air behind it to really interact with this warm air that would create an area of increased convection to maintain the strength of this storm. So as a result, this storm is going to weaken as it heads further and further towards the east. However, it'll weaken. It won't weaken without leaving a decent amount of snow throughout the Midwest, additional snowfall on top of what you're already experiencing. So if we zoom in a little bit, you see that Chicago's deep in the snow at this point. However, I'd say in Chicago, you're borderline about to leave it at this point, as this storm is moving very slowly to the east, and within time, the snow should be out of there. In Chicago, if we take a look at the future, you see that the snow moves out of Chicago and then enters Milwaukee for a brief period of time, dumping a decent amount of snow. And however, the bad news is that despite the storm weakening, it's moving very slowly because, like I said, it's pretty much it doesn't have the influence of the jet stream, so the upper level winds aren't steering it, and there's a weak steering flow as a result. The only thing that's really steering it is this ridge that's sort of in the southeast at this point, just off the southeast coast. The GFS model shows us where we do have a little bit of a ridge that's located in the southeast that's steering it further and further to the east, and eventually the jet stream does dip down to the point where it does steer it to the east. However, this jet stream is very weak because the jet stream is very straightened out. There isn't a lot of cold air interacting with that warm air, which would enhance the upper level winds of the jet stream, which would steer it further to the east. However, that isn't the case, as the jet stream is pretty much straightened out, very weak upper level winds. So as a result, it's going to move very slowly to the east, and it will dump a decent amount of additional snowfall on top of what you already experienced in a lot of the Midwest states. If we take a look at the snowfall forecast from the GFS model, we have to keep in mind that this current run you see right here is a little bit outdated at this point, since the low pressure has moved marginally more and more towards the east, and the storm is now a lot weaker than what you're seeing right here, as the GFS model still has yet to update its forecasts into a more current into a forecast that's more up to date. So as a result, keep in mind it's a little outdated, but in terms of how much additional the GFS is forecasting on top of what you're already forecasted, on top of what you've already experienced, you see not much more, maybe an additional 1 to 3 inches, and maybe 3 to 6 in some isolated areas where you're going to be in the meandering snow band at this point. If we take a look at the future cast radar, you're going to see that the storm will meander over the same area right around Minnesota and Wisconsin for several hours. You see, I'd say the most additional snow that you should, the area that will receive the most additional snow will be somewhere in western Wisconsin and eastern Minnesota. But eventually, the storm will weaken as a result of a lack of unstable air, and for the most part, it won't bring much more additional snow at all anymore. Maybe some snow showers in the northeast, because there will be just enough unstable air to create a small area of convection to develop some snow showers, but I don't expect any accumulating snowfall from this first low pressure system that we've been tracking since it was in the Midwest. And this trough was originally very strong, by the way. There were many records broken throughout Colorado and Wyoming, where I think some areas received up to 50 inches of snow, which is quite insane. That's over 4 feet of snow, which might be the highest I've ever seen in a populated area. I know in California and the higher elevations of the West Coast did receive well over 4 feet before this winter, but in terms of the impact when it comes to snowfall accumulation in a populated area that's lower in elevation, I think this low pressure system takes a cake in terms of the highest snowfall accumulation we've seen this winter. And we've seen a lot of winter storms, so that's quite the achievement for this storm, or quite the milestone this storm broke over Colorado and Wyoming. Just dumped a lot of snow. However, this storm, it has now pretty much weakened, and it's going to continue weakening thanks to a lack of unstable air and not dump that much more snow throughout the Midwest and the Northeast. And you might be thinking, how about in the Southeast, where we do see increased amounts of precipitation, such as some thunderstorm activity and heavier rainfall? And while that is true, I don't expect it to necessarily be severe. Maybe a slight chance, but there just isn't enough upper level. There just isn't enough unstable air to really create supercell thunderstorms or to create an area of convection or strong updrafts. And there isn't really enough upper level wind, strong upper level winds that could induce supercell thunderstorms and create a very very potent thunderstorms. So as a result, I don't expect much in terms of severe weather in the Southeast. However, you at least want to watch out, especially through Alabama and Mississippi, for a flash flooding threat, because it's certainly possible, because these thunderstorm clusters are going to form over pretty much the same area, and it's going to bring a lot of thunderstorm activity over the same area. So I wouldn't be surprised if we do see that isolated flash flooding threat. However, even then, it's more likely than not it won't be a major flash flooding threat, and you might not even experience any sort of flash flooding anywhere in the Southeast at all from this. But it's at least something to watch out for, especially if you plan on going out right around Tuesday morning, where thunderstorm activity should be at its worst throughout the Southeast. But outside of the rain in the Southeast and the isolated snow showers you will see in the Northeast and the additional snow you will see in the Midwest, the trough will move far to the east and will not affect the United States anymore with any major impacts, which is definitely good news for a lot of you guys. We don't want to see any more major snowstorms that could be deadly at times, or bring any sort of impactful events to the United States. However, outside of this trough, we're also focusing on this next trough, which I do believe has the potential to be much more impactful, especially for the Southeast when it comes to severe weather. At least in terms of snow, I wouldn't say it will be anywhere near the magnitude as, let's say, what we saw in Colorado and Wyoming, but it's at least something to watch, pretty much just north of the Ohio River Valley and even extending to the Northeast, because there's certainly going to be a chance of snow with this next trough that's going to move through. So if we take a look at the future radar from the GFS model, you're going to see that there's going to be a trough coming off the California coast. And the interesting thing about this trough is that look at how much cold air it's going to bring behind it. We're seeing heavy snow throughout the higher elevations of California, and this even extends to Nevada, just east of Reno, Nevada. So as a result, this really shows that there's a lot of cold air behind this trough, and that is pretty much going to set the stage for what will become a pretty powerful trough moving through the United States, and a powerful mid-latitude cyclone which could induce severe weather throughout the Southeast. And even states further up northward need to at least pay attention to this, because there could be that possibility of some snow as well. So if we continue to move forward, you see the cold air is still behind it, and we do see a decent jet stream dip that will help really set the stage for an unstable air mass. And there's going to be, as a result, there's going to be strong upper level winds with this, which will really help, which really creates the wind shear for this storm to create those supercell thunderstorms. Because one of the things thunderstorms need for it to be considered severe or supercell thunderstorm or to create tornadoes is strong wind shear, and that's definitely gonna occur headed into the right around the 2-day mark on Wednesday, where we do see this storm rapidly intensify, and that jet stream dip will definitely induce a lot of unstable air for this low pressure system to work with. And it looks like a classic mid-latitude cyclone where we see the dry air on the southwestern side of this storm. We do see precipitation on the eastern half of the storm, and we see also a lot of precipitation on the northwestern half. It's pretty much a classic mid-latitude cyclone look it's gonna appear as, and you see that there's a large area of rain as well. And this even extends to the northwest, and we do see a little bit of snow in the GFS model, especially right around Colorado and Kansas. However, for the most part, it's rain, but I wouldn't rule out the chance that maybe you might receive some snow on especially the extreme northern portion of this low pressure system. The European model is also agreeing with this for the most part. If we take a look at its current forecast, you're gonna see that the European is also taking at least a decent amount of snow on the northern half of this storm. Let's take a look at the European model's radar forecast. You're gonna see that there's a pretty large area of snow throughout the panhandle of Texas, extending to Oklahoma, as well as a little bit of Kansas as well. And this storm is also very powerful, just very reminiscent of the GFS. And we do see supercell thunderstorms on the eastern half of the storm, on the southeastern quarter of this storm. And you see that as it moves further eastward, there's going to be a ridge that's going to move further southward, and that ridge is going to bring a lot of that cold Arctic air further southward, and it might be just enough cold air that could increase the chance of snow throughout the Northeast, which is something to definitely keep in mind. And it could be a decent amount of snow as well. If we were to take a look at the European models current forecast when it comes to snowfall, it's pretty confident in taking at least accumulating snowfall with this storm. And if we take a look at that, you see a large area of 3 to 6 inches throughout right around Boston, throughout southeastern New England, and we do see a large area for the most part of 1 to 3 inches. And while that isn't a major snowstorm for the most part, it's still at least something to keep in mind, because 1 to 3 inches of snow could still definitely cause some trouble on the roads, even though it's not considered a major snow event. So we need to keep a close eye on this. It really depends on how fast this ridge moves further south and how fast the low pressure system moves, and it really all depends on time, because if the ridge gets here before the low pressure system moves further eastward, then there's more of a chance of snow, because that ridge will be close enough to have a major influence in bringing cold air further southward into the Northeast to really create a bigger snow event. However, if this ridge, let's say, is so far up north by the time the low pressure system comes here, then it's less likely of a chance we're going to see a snow event, as I wouldn't rule out that you guys won't experience any sort of snowfall accumulation from this, as that's certainly a possibility. However, with both of the computer models leaning towards at least bringing some sort of accumulating snowfall in the Northeast, it really is giving me more confidence that at least somewhere in the Northeast we're going to see accumulating snowfall. Because if we move forward, you see that the GFS does bring a decent amount of accumulating snowfall with this next snowstorm. It isn't a lot, it's a little less than the European model, but it is at least bringing some snowfall to the Northeast, and it's definitely something to keep a close eye on in the Northeast. So just be aware of it. Be prepared that you might experience maybe a 1 to 3 inch snow event headed into this Thursday, which might be a bummer for some of you who want to experience spring already, but but at this point, it seems like it's becoming a little more likely accumulating snowfall is gonna occur in the northeast. However, the other threat that I think will be more major with this storm is obviously the severe weather threat associated with this next mid-latitude cyclone. If we take a look at the GFS model radar, you see that this next storm will be pretty potent thanks to the unstable air, the strong upper level winds associated with it, and it'll create a pretty large area of convection and just a strong area of vorticity to create those thunderstorms throughout the southeast, and there could be a tornado threat associated with this as well. Because if we look at the upper levels of the atmosphere and the mid levels, you see that the winds increase rapidly with height, and that's really what creates wind shear. And the wind direction does shift just ever so slightly to the point where that could induce a possibility of tornadoes, since tornadoes really require very strong wind shear, which means change in wind direction or wind speed with height. And you see that the wind speed rapidly changes with height, and also slightly the wind direction in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And if we take a look again at let's take a look at that again to see if it's evident that we're going to see strong wind shear with the storm. And it's even more evident in this model, where originally you see the winds coming along the surface more from the south and west. However, that wind direction shifts almost directly to the west, which is pretty much asking for a very potent supercell and tornado threat throughout the southeast. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. We have to wait and see how much unstable air there is, and maybe the wind shear does shift over the next several days. However, based off of the current circumstances and that we're only around 2 days out from the severe weather threat, I think it's more likely than not a major severe weather threat should be expected in the southeast. If we were to take a look at what the National Weather Service is forecasting 3 days from now with this severe weather threat, this is valid from Wednesday all the way through Thursday, and you see that there's an enhanced risk of severe weather throughout the southeast, and slight just outside of that, but slight typically means it's like a moderate chance, so you definitely need to keep in mind even if you're in the slight category. But an enhanced risk of thunderstorm activity as a result of just very strong updrafts, a lot of convection in this region, and just strong upper level winds that could induce a chance of damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes associated with this storm. However, the good news is that it won't be a multi-day threat, as it's mainly going to be the worst Wednesday night into Thursday, where you see day 4 the chance is minimal along the southeast coast, and it won't be anywhere near as severe as, let's say, on Wednesday into Thursday. And moving on into the day before, you see that there's slight risk right around the Midwest, so you at least need to pay attention to this, but it won't be nowhere near what you're going to experience in the southeast. If we were to take a look at my current forecast map when it comes to severe weather, you see I'm expecting a high risk of severe weather, which includes cities such as Jackson, Mississippi, Little Rock, Arkansas, Gulfport, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, and you also see that Birmingham could definitely be involved in the risk of tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail. And then a likely risk, I'd say, throughout New Orleans, extending to Shreveport, Louisiana, and all the way up north to maybe Joplin, Missouri. As far north as Joplin, Missouri could experience some severe weather from this. It won't be, the risk won't be as high, since there isn't enough there isn't enough warm air to hold enough water vapor to really create latent heat to induce as strong of thunderstorms, but there's still certainly the risk. And then a possible severe weather threat through the areas just east of the likely risk severe weather area and to the west of the likely severe weather area. So this is definitely something you guys need to keep in mind. I'd say prepare for the risk of tornado in Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, since it's likely that you guys will experience a severe weather threat this Wednesday, pretty much very likely at this point. So stay prepared for that and make sure to know what you're doing during a tornado or during a severe thunderstorm. Obviously, never hide under a tree during a severe thunderstorm since trees are very prone to get struck by lightning. And during a tornado, never hide under a bridge or because typically the winds are strongest under a bridge. And there's a lot of other advice you need to heed to stay safe during a tornado or severe weather threat, severe thunderstorm. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video. Make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. I hope you guys have a good day.